Okay, so with Keycaster running, you can actually see the keys that I'm using down at the bottom right-hand corner. That'll probably help you guys out. Let's go ahead and actually show our markers as well. So far, we've only created one marker. It's at the beginning there, and it's intro. Now, just by looking at the vocals, if I cruise up to where I see the next vocal section start, let's take a listen to what these vocals are doing. So that's verse 1. It's pretty apparent that's going to be verse 1. So let's go ahead and create a marker there. Notice I'm using the vocals just kind of as a visual. Cool. And I have a feeling, if you take a look here, 8 measures later, let's take a listen from there on. So this whole section here is verse. And it looks like things are done in measures of 8. So I'm looking at measures 8 there. I can select 8 measures here. And this should kind of give us a good idea of how the song structure is going to go. I'm actually going to listen to this verse real quick, so let's take a quick listen to the verse. My man is a fighter, and my man gives me shelter. His hand holds you down. Oh, how you feel is around, always around. Oh, you're going faster now. You'll need a head start. Come ready, get started. His fight's worse than his fight. Is a hunter. I tell you what. So if I go and take a look at this, we can see we've got 8 measures there. That's going to be verse 1. It sounded like it was a chorus. Let's move a little bit further in the song to make sure that that is chorus. So I'm looking, this looks like it's going to be verse information again. Let's take a listen to this section. You'll need a head start. And he's breathing out. I hear the change. All right, we're going to call this verse 1. We're going to call this chorus 1. C-H-O-R-U-S-1. And we can see that runs for about 8 measures. It looks like there's a little bit of an interlude here between here and here. So it looks like our next verse is going to pick up right here. Sure enough, it is. So we're going to go ahead and put that in, verse 02. And then I have a feeling that 8 measures after our verse, here comes our second chorus. And here's where it gets interesting. The song structure changed quite drastically. It looks like we have a really long bridge section. So let's do this. Let's actually measure off 8 measures for the chorus. And I'm actually going to listen to it real quick because I want to hear the actual transition going into this bridge. As you can see, there's a big gap where a lot of instruments fall out. And also the melody of the song changes pretty drastically as well. Let's take a listen. Oops, didn't mean to edit there. You'll need a head start. Come ready, get started. These words are and where the cabinet's empty and he's breathing out. I hear the energy. There's no love in this house. His breath is bloody and his head is strong. Really long bridge section. What I'm going to do is, since we already established where the chorus is, I'm going to go ahead and put in 8 measures worth of length here, because I believe this is really where our bridge starts. Let's take a listen. It's either going to be here or here. I just wanted to make sure we got it right. Yeah, this short's really stopped. I'm sorry, it stops short of being actually a full 8 measures for the chorus section here. And it jumps in pretty quick. So here's our bridge. We're going to go ahead and nail that out. Bridge, B-R-I-D-G-E. Now I know this seems really rudimentary, but once you see the stencil work get in here, you're going to really see how the song is going to be easy to take apart and put back together. Let's figure out where this lands back, coming back in. And here is our new verse section. This is going to be verse 03. And I bet you we can nail this out to being 8 bars long. Absolutely we can. There's our new chorus section here. CH03. And I'm going to give the chorus here, let's see, 8 measures. And then we're going to call this outro. So now that we have the sections of the song kind of nailed down here, if I pull up my memory locations window, you can see that anytime if I ever want to jump around the song, even while the song's playing back, I'll go ahead and hit play. We'll start us off with the intro here. You can see I'm at the intro. If I wanted to go to the first chorus, or the bridge, or the outro, now, the reason I really like to block out my song is I actually heard some stuff in this outro section. I'm actually going to play this for you guys because I'm actually going to use this in my rearrangement here, but I'm actually going to use this as intro material. Let's listen to the chorus and then going out of the song. So, by the way, if I want to skip around to any of these memory locations window, even while Pro Tools is playing back, notice if I'm at memory location 2, on a numeric keypad, a full keypad, if I were to type in period 2 period, it jumps directly to that spot. So memory location 8, which is that last chorus, it would be period 8 period, and I'm immediately there. So let me hit play. Period 2 period takes me to memory location 2. Period 8 period. I really like some of those vocal elements. I'm going to end up using some of these through the intro and through the bridge. If we solo that and just take a listen. Yeah, we're going to get to use those in a lot of other spots that just for some little background effects. Cool. Now that the song is completely blocked out, we have a good way of taking it apart and putting it back together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ditch the original drums, because that's how I always start my remixes. I start drums, bass, and then we start moving on to other elements. But we want to get those 2 pieces down first, especially with any kind of dance track. There's going to be the 2 moving parts, the 2 elements that are going to have to be really grooving together. So we're going to just out and out. I'll tell you what, let's do a file save as. And we'll call this, we'll call this version 01. And we'll delete the drums. Now I'm deleting drums, but I'm going to start adding back in my own drum parts. And I want to show you guys A really creative way of doing that is actually using Pro Tools Workspace Browser. You guys did that in week 1 in your PTA 1 assignment, which, by the way, all those grades are in. Obviously, your PTA 2 grades aren't in. The only 2 outstanding grades you guys should have would be your discussion post from last week, and then, of course, the new assignment that you guys just turned in last night, PTA 2. But those are the only outstanding grades. Your PTA 1 is already in, and if you've already been paying attention to those lecture assignments, those grades are in. So just to let you guys know, I know some of you guys were concerned about your grades. Okay, cool. Let's go back and get the loops imported into Pro Tools. So use the Workspace browser. Option semicolon is a quick key. If you don't remember that, that's okay. No big deal. I'm going to show you the menu to find that as well. You want to go up to your Windows menu, and then you go down, you see here you have Workspace. I'll open my Workspace browser. I'm going to navigate back through my Macintosh. So I'm going to go back to my user account here. There's my name, John Barry. So now I'm going to go find my music folder. Music folder. Cool. It's going to take that a moment to update. It's trying to actually scan all the files in that folder. Let me hide some windows here. Looks like I may have gone into the wrong folder here. Oh, movies. I went to the movies. Yeah. All right. I want to go to sounds and samples. That's where I've got all my loop libraries. And we're going to go use the Avid sound libraries. I'm going to go for an R&B feel on this. So we're going to go look under the R&B funk and soul. And then I want to look under drums for right now. Let's look under R&B drums. So these are all files that, as long as I have this little MIDI metronome symbol, these actually will play back in tempo with the session, even though they're written at a completely different tempo. That's one of the reasons why I like using this Workspace browser, because before I import it into my Pro Tools session, I can audition it in tempo with the music, and that way I'll know before actually importing it whether it's going to work or not. So we'll go ahead and we'll start the playback of the session. Notice I shrunk the size of my session down. I do that on purpose. That way, if I need to get back to the Workspace browser, it's just there kind of underneath. And so I like to, instead of having a clip spin where I'm pulling things from, I like to keep my clip spin closed and just use the Workspace browser. So we'll go ahead and start play off here. And I'm just going to skim through these files. We'll grab some loops that I think work good, and then we'll start building from there. And by the way, we're not just going to use loops either. Tonight, I'm going to get into showing you guys how to create your own drum pattern as well. But this will kind of just get us started for right now and maybe give us some inspiration. Some people think that using loops is totally cheating. And, you know, that's totally cool. I get that if you feel that way. So that's why I'm going to actually show you guys how to use a little bit of both. We'll show you how to use drum loops, and then I'm going to take you into using Expand and show you guys how to create your own drum patterns as well. But for right now, we'll go ahead and we'll just skim this loop library. We'll go ahead and start the playback of the session. And we'll go through and dig through the loops library until we find something that'll work. couple loops that I liked here, and actually some of the first ones that I chose. We'll go back to the beginning of the session. All I did was I just dragged them from the workspace browser over into Pro Tools, and as long as that MIDI metronome symbol is engaged, everything played back in tempo with the session. You guys heard that. And now when I drag it into the session, it actually already time stretches it to make sure that it matches the session's tempo as well. Another really important reason to have your material locked up to the DAW itself. I could play these two loops together. They might actually fight each other. Let's go ahead and just give it a listen. They actually don't sound too bad together. Let's actually listen to them side by side real quick. And they're kind of loud, so I'm going to turn this back just a little bit. I'm really liking the first loop the best. I think it just kind of complements the song, and it happened just to be the very first loop we used. For right now, I'm actually just going to loop this throughout the entirety of the song. We may want to change it up a bit, and we can actually do that. So instead of having that one stagnant loop, let's do this. Let's actually slightly alter the original loop. So I'll go ahead and I'll just duplicate it once. Oops, sorry about that. Command D to duplicate. Let's zoom into this, and if I change my grid resolution to 16th notes, because we have the grid locked up, I can then go and change this slightly. So I'm going to just solo it out and listen to it, and as I go through, I'm going to just do some edits. Most of the edits I'm going to do, I'll just select the drum, and then I'll just duplicate parts. But let's listen to it. So basically, I'm just consolidating and then creating fades. All right, so I've got a good little variation between the two. And notice really all I did was I just took selections here. Just give you another example of what I did, because I wasn't really talking while I went through it. So in this case right here, I just kind of took this little hit and I duplicated it multiple times. And then I consolidated those duplications. The reason I consolidate it is because then it allows me to put a little fade out on it, so it gives it that kind of little, sounds like a delay effect. We go back and listen to it. So I'm just trying to create those little small differences between the very first loop and the second one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and reconsolidate this all back together as one large loop. Shift Option 3 to consolidate. And then let's name these two so we know that they're slightly different. So we're going to call this, we'll get rid of the number at the beginning, R&B Drums A. And then we will call the second one R&B Drums B. That way we know there's a difference between the two. And if we listen back, the changes between them aren't really that substantial, but they're substantial enough that it will be more entertaining on your ear as opposed to just listening to a long static loop over and over. We'll give it a quick listen. That way you can hear the difference between drums A and drums B. And just keep in mind, drums B was the one that I edited. I tell you what, there's something a little bit funky about this, and those 4 big kick hits right in the middle of this. I want to do something a little bit entertaining with some of these. How about we reverse some of these? So I'm just going to select it, go up to Audio Suite, go down to Other. And let's do reverse on that one. Let's do the same thing on this guy there. And let's listen back. They were just a little bit too in-your-face pounding. This will give them a little bit of a newer effect. And I'm noticing we might have to go in and look at some of the edit on that as well, because I'm looking at that and notice how it's like I cut into some of the drums. Yeah, let's just give it a listen then. Your ear will really tell you. Yeah, it's a little bit better. This gives it a different groove. We'll go ahead and consolidate that back together. Shift Option 3. And let's make sure we call it drums B again. And B drums B. Excellent. Nice. Okay. Now I can pretty much just copy this throughout the song. We could actually change it up as we go throughout the song, but for right now, we're just going to copy this through the song, and I'll show you why. We're going to go and create our own drum beat here in a moment. So notice to copy it, let me go back. I'm kind of going a little bit fast. Let me explain to you guys what I did. So to copy it, I went ahead and I just made sure I had both of them selected. Shift Return. We'll select back to the beginning. And then I just did Command D to duplicate it out to the length of the song. And it looks like I'm a little bit over. But now if we go back and we listen to it, I've got a nice bed for the actual song itself. Now, I intentionally kind of left this as a really simple drum loop because I may abandon this drum loop altogether. What I really want to get into is showing you guys how to create your own drum patterns. So let's actually take you through and do that now. For right now, if that's the case, then let me rename this track because I don't need the extraneous numbers on this track. And it's just going to be called R&B Drums. Okay, cool. Now I know what's going on the song. For right now, I'm going to right-click it and hide and make inactive. And in fact, I'm going to hide all my tracks because I want to pull up a couple of different tracks and show you guys some things dealing with MIDI. So first of all, I'm going to kind of take you guys through an old school method of using MIDI inside of Pro Tools, and it'll make sense once I kind of bring it around to the new school. So first of all, do me a favor and see if you can finish my sentence for me. If I was to say MIDI is not, what would be the next word that would come after? MIDI is not what? You guys have already heard this before. Yeah, it's not audio. So we know that we're dealing with controller information. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a MIDI track. Just keep in mind, MIDI's not audio, right? We already know that. So we got our MIDI track here. Now, if we take a look inside of our mix window, in order to trigger something, we're going to have to trigger a virtual instrument of some kind. So we're going to create a stereo aux track. And on the stereo aux track, we're going to put an expand. Oops, that's an audio track. So I'll need to delete that and recreate what I meant to create. So we delete this. Shift Command N. And I'm meant to create a stereo aux input. Cool. We'll call it expand because that's the plugin we're going to use on here. And so let's take a look at all expand. Look underneath your inserts, go down to your instrument section, and then find expand. Okay, expand is a really cool plugin. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Cool. I've got two screens. Mine's on a separate screen here. Go ahead and save my work, make sure I've got this. Now, Expand is a really cool plugin. Think of it as kind of a meat and potatoes synthesizer. It's got natural strings as well as synthesized strings. It's got natural piano as well as some synthesized pianos. So it has a little bit of both. It's got natural sounds, and most of your meat and potato sounds you can find inside of here. So that's what we're going to use it for tonight. And so let's go find some drums. Up here underneath the preset browser, we're going to go find some percussion. So we'll see we've got drums here. We'll try the urban beat. I don't know if I've ever tried this one or not. Oop, looks like I'm running out of power. Give me 1 second. Let me see why that's not plugged in. And voila, we have power. All right. Let's see here. So I've actually never used this kit before, so I'll have to get used to it, but that's okay. So now that the kit is loaded, if we come back around here to Pro Tools, I'm actually going to hide the GUI for a moment, and we're going to open up our MIDI track here. And actually, let's go back to the mix window. If I record arm this track, notice that right now, when I go to hit the keys, we're seeing MIDI information, so you can actually see that I'm hitting my keyboard, but we're not hearing anything, and that's because the MIDI information doesn't know what it's supposed to be going out to trigger. Right now, it's set for something called the laboratory, but that's wrong. So we need to go into the output, tell it needs to go trigger expand MIDI channel 1, and there you go. Now we've got our drums. Now let's go back around to the mix window, and I want to scroll down. Let's put this. By the way, all your MIDI tracks default to being in clips view. You want to change it to being notes view. I'm going to scroll down to C1, and our kick is generally going to be on C1. And there it is. So the easiest way that I create my own drum beats, I'll show you this real quick, is I'm going to zoom in to the very first bar, and I'm going to set my grid resolution to 16th notes. I'm fine with that. I'm just going to deal with one bar at a time. So I'm just going to deal with this area right in here. And the quickest and easiest way to make this drum beat is just to put in a kick. Put one there, put one there, put one there, and put one there. Now, that's going to seem really simple here in a moment, but I promise you we'll change it up slightly. So that's the case. We need to put a snare or clap. I'm going to go with clap for right now. We can use a clap. And then we need to find some kind of closed and open hats. There we go. Actually, let me show you one other thing. If we go and change to the line tool, then those closed hats will actually draw themselves in. All I have to do is click and drag. However, this very last one, I want to go see if I can find an actual open hat. Yeah, we'll leave that there, and we'll give you guys a listen so you can see. Now, don't laugh. It's not going to sound too hot, but I promise you I'm going to change it around here in a minute, and it'll make it sound a little bit better. Yeah, super, super basic, right? Let's make it a little bit fresher, though. Let's get rid of every other hit. So, especially on when we have these closed hats, I don't need every hit going. Now, let's change it up to where we've got couple kicks going here at the beginning, and a couple kicks towards the end. So this is going to basically give it more of a breakbeat feel. Yeah, I kind of like that a lot better. It's got a lot more groove to it, and simply just by moving the kicks around slightly. Now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this over. So we basically have the same pattern, but this time make it maybe make it slightly different. We'll zoom into it, Option F, and how about maybe add in a couple more closed hats, maybe even add in a couple other open hats. And I'm going to go back and just listen to it and then move some of the notes around just to try to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, if we go listen to that as compared to the first passage, you'll see that it just doesn't sound like one long big loop now. Now it's actually got a little bit of variation to it. All right, cool. So I've got a pretty decent pattern. If I just want to do a little bit more to it, I actually might add in a couple more closed hats, maybe in some spots like here, there, and there. You know, just kind of keep the influence of these two kind of sounding a little bit more similar. All right, cool. What I should probably do now is normally I'd probably make a couple more patterns here so that we have something that kind of sounds similar so they aren't exactly all the same. But for right now, I want to kind of move on and show you guys how to get this stuff recorded down to audio. So if we take a look here in my mix window, I could actually just record it all to one track, but we're going to have a problem with that. And the problem with that is, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and show it to you. So if I want to record this down to audio, we'll go ahead and create a stereo audio track. Now I'll route this. Remember, the sound is coming from the aux track, not coming from the not coming from the MIDI track, because MIDI's not audio. So to get the sound over into the audio track, what I need to do is I need to route the output out an available bus. Notice all the buses are available. So pick any available bus. We'll pick 9 and 10. And all you have to do is match the same bus path on the input of the audio track you want to record to. So bus 9 and 10. Recorder on the track. Now this is actually going to present a problem here, but I knew about this before we even started. I figured I'd go ahead and just show you what's going to happen. So let's go ahead and record it down. Cool. Now I have it all recorded, but now I've kind of painted myself into a corner. And the corner that I've painted myself into is this. Right now I have 4 different drum parts. I've got the open hats at the top. I've got the closed hats here in the middle. I've got the snare, which, by the way, it's kind of a boring snare pattern. I probably want to change that up slightly and add in a couple hits here and there. But either way. And then we've got the kick pattern down at the bottom. All of those, when I recorded it to audio, they're all recorded together. If I were to want to EQ my kick, well, then I'd end up EQing everything on that track, not just the kick, right? Because here's my audio. Now that we've converted our MIDI pattern into audio, this is what I'd be affecting, and this actually has everything blended together. And that's just not going to cut it. What I want is I want to have my kick, my snare, my open hat, and my closed hat all on their own individual tracks. Well, in the current state that we're in, I can't do that. So we'll need to actually get these comped out to individual tracks. So here's what I have to do. I have to actually do, I'm going to delete this track that I just recorded to for right now. Delete. Cool. What I need to do is, this we kind of created a predicament here. Everything's coming from this one track. And what I need to happen is I need everything to happen on their own individual track. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split these notes out. Notice how this one note, my open hat, let me go back and route this so you can hear it again. Notice my open hat is on its own track. Or, I'm sorry, on its own key. All right, that's only one key. It's not spread out across a bunch of keys. It's only on one key. So then what I want to do is I want to actually split these notes out per key. And you can do that underneath your MIDI operations. All MIDI operations are located up here where it says event operations. And here are all the MIDI operations. So what I want to do is this thing called select split notes. You want to have this menu open. Then I want to go through and actually go and select all notes. And I want it to split these notes. And I want it to cut them to a new track per pitch. What does that mean? Well, this is a pitch, right? That's a key. So it's normally a pitch, but in this case, it's the kick versus the snare, or what's being used as a snare, as a clap, closed hats, and then open hats. So if that's the case, then that's basically what I want to do. Now, remember, all your MIDI operations work on whatever is selected, so that when I now hit apply, you'll see that it's going to create a new track for each of these little elements. Cool. Let's cut them out of their original track, so I can delete this original track now. Delete. And now we have the same pattern, but it's running off of individual tracks. Now we have individual MIDI tracks. So what I need to do now is I need to get them recorded over into their own individual tracks. So we're going to create 4 mono tracks. Shift Command N, 4 mono tracks. Good to go. Let's go ahead and name them. It's going to be open hat. Let's just call it O hat for right now. It'll be obvious what that is, right? Closed hat, or CL hat. Let's see, what did I have after that? So open hat, closed hat, snare, and then kick. Cool. What I need to do now is basically route the output here at any available bus. We'll just use bus 1 for right now. And all the tracks that I need to route to, we're going to make sure their input is bus 1. Now I'll simply solo out each of these individual pieces that we're going to be using and record them one at a time. Record arm and record. Oh, we're not hearing that part. Oh, there we go. Cool. So there's our open hat. Just rinse and repeat. So unsolo this part, solo this part, unsolo, unrecord arm, solo, record arm, rinse and repeat. Cool. And in fact, we can leave these soloed if you want. Unrecord arm, solo, record arm, and record. I called that snare. Let's change that to clap. It's being used as a snare piece, but it is a clap. And if that's the case, let's go ahead and make sure that we name the file as well. Keep the nomenclature correct. All right. Solo out our part for our kick, and rinse and repeat. Record arm, solo. Excellent. There you go. Now we've got our parts there that we needed. All right, now everything's on its own individual track, so now if I wanted to EQ them, I can. Now they're all individually treated. I can actually get rid of these tracks, or for right now, let's just hide them and make them inactive. So I just right-clicked, and we'll just hide them. Cool. I can go ahead and paste this out for the length of the song if we want. And let's take a listen to how this sounds. Now, remember, we have that other loop that we can choose to incorporate in this song as well if we want to. Or we can maybe just leave it off to the side. We'll see how we want that to work out. I'll select each of these parts. I'll duplicate 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Shift return. So now notice what I have. I have an 8-bar selection, which will be real nice to just paste out throughout the rest of the song. Let's go back and see how our loop stands up with the actual playback of the song itself.
His hand holds you down. Oh, how you feel when he's around. Oh, when you're going faster now, you'll need a head start.
I like it. Sounds really, really good. Now, some other things I might want to consider doing is let's go back to that loop that I was using earlier. We called it, what do we call it? R&B drums. I'm going to go ahead and reactivate this. And I'm going to get rid of it for any part where it's not in the bridge. So when we see that bridge section start, we're going to let that other loop drop back in. And wherever that's happening, I'm going to get rid of these other parts here. We'll go ahead and delete from here. And notice I'm using the visual clues that I've already created for myself because we created those markers. Sorry, I'm just changing my grid resolution real quick. That way I can zoom in here and see, because really, all these parts need to get bumped back slightly. Shift Option Return selects the opposite direction. Grab it, move it over. And then Shift Option Return to delete those sections. So if we go and we listen, I just created a nice little section where we have that other drum loop coming in for the bridge section. Let's take a listen and see how that works out. We'll pick it up from our second chorus, which I see is memory location 5, period 5, period, hit play.
You'll need a head start. Cause nobody gets dark. And he's bringing out. I hear the energy. There's no love in his breath, his body, and his hand is strong. Be gone.
Yeah, not bad. Kind of a harsh transition between these two because totally different drum sounds being used. But either way, it's your remix. It's going to be however you guys want it to be. So there you go. So far, we've gone over several different things. We've shown you guys how to stencil out your song, how to actually get in memory locations into your song to give yourself some song structure. That way, it'll allow you to figure out where you need to paste your parts into your song. We've also shown you how to create a drum pattern in Pro Tools utilizing MIDI and virtual instruments. We've also shown you how to record it and record it to its own individual tracks. That way you could actually mix it as well. Because notice we now have those as their own individual tracks over here. I don't really need to view these anymore. We can get rid of these, hide them from view. Now you can see we have the individual tracks for our drums. We've got the open hats, closed hats, the clap, and the kick itself. So any of these can actually be mixed however you want as well. Like I thought the open hat sounded a little bit loud. Typically, I'd have my clap off to the side slightly as well, and overhead slightly off to the right. That'll just kind of be up to you, however you want to choose your pan positions. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've shown so far? I've been kind of talking for quite a while. I haven't really let up to give you guys any questions. Okay, yeah, William, tempo information. Make sure you see the very beginning of the archive. Um, and I also covered it in detail in last week's as well. So make sure you watch those archives. In last week's archive, you would probably want to skip into about the 2 hour mark because that's where I really kind of dove into that really deeply. Um, so as long as you watch the beginning of this one, that you should be fine. And if you wanted to get more information about it, if you look into week 2 at about the 2 hour mark, week 2 I went a little bit long. I had some students that wanted me to go into a little bit more detail, so I stuck around with them and did that. So week 2 is almost 3 hours long. You don't have to watch the whole thing. The last part is kind of a redundancy, but it does go into great detail about the tempo and how to lock things up, which is one of the most important parts that I want you guys to take away from this is making sure you lock your audio up to the actual tempo of your DAW. If you're not doing that, you're throwing away more than half of what the DAW can do. What I want to do now is actually switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about vocal effects and some cool vocal effects that we're going to do to the lead vocals. So we pull up the lead vocal track. We're going to stretch it out real big so we can see it nice and big. And I want to pay attention to the chorus sections because I want to talk about the lead-in word. Actually, I'm going to do lead in on a couple sections here. If we go to this very first word here on verse 1, we listen to this. My man is a fighter. I'm going to take the word my, and I'm actually going to make what's called a reverse reverb. So it'll kind of help introduce it. It'll kind of sound like air is being sucked into the room. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to change the grid resolution to, let's do 8 notes. So I believe the word my is going to be right here. My man. Yeah, there we go. So where she says, my man. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select from here to here. And I'm actually going to put this on another track. I'm going to put it on another track below her. So we're going to make a stereo audio track. Let's call it Vox Effects. That way we know it's going to be vocal effects. And I'm going to end up slicing this out. I'm going to slice this out and I'm going to put it on the track below it. And I'm also going to copy it down below. Now, when I copy this, I'm going to end up doing some really cool treatments to it. So let me show you what it is I'm going to do. Let me make these both a little bit larger so you can see real big and see what's going on. Now, I basically have the same exact word there. And the thing that I'm concerned with a little bit is she kind of walks into this a little bit early. You can see just by the downbeat here of the grid itself. So what I'm going to end up doing is reversing this and actually adding reverb to it. So when I reverse this, it's going to change the position of this slightly. So let me, let's see here. Let's go ahead and let's just do it and try it. So first of all, we're going to go underneath Audio Suite. Oh, good. Sorry, yeah. I might have gone too fast. If I ever want to slice something out, Command E will slice whatever your selection is and just edit it. If you've got Command Focus on, as you see here, it's just a one keystroke. It turns into the B key. But Command Focus is basically a set of 26 key commands that kind of shorten down 2 and 3 keystrokes into 1 key keystrokes, some of the more common keystrokes. But I'm kind of old school, so I get used to doing things the old way. Command E to slice something. But yeah, good question. Okay, cool. Yeah, not a problem. Absolutely. Sometimes I go a little bit too fast, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. So anytime I skip over something you want to know, do just like you did. Just ask, and I'll tell you. Okay, underneath Audio Suite, I'm going to go down here to Other, and we're going to go down and choose Reverse. And we'll go ahead and render it. So it's already in reverse. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add reverb to it. I'm going to add a really long reverb trail to it by going into Audio Suite and choosing a reverb. We'll choose Deverb. We'll choose a large hall. That sounds good. We'll change the decay to being a very long decay. We'll render it. Actually, that didn't look like it was long enough. So let's make it a little bit longer than that. Render it. And what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at the length of the decay here. It doesn't look too bad, but I think it could actually be a little bit better than that. Let's see here. Let's make it even longer then. And I'll render it. Cool. We'll actually change the height as well. And then I'm going to flip it back around again. So we're going to go ahead and reverse it again. Audio Suite. Go down to Other, go to Reverse, render it. And of course, now it needs to be in this position. So basically, you're going to hear a ghostly effect of her voice coming in to usher up and enter into this part where she's talking about her man. Create a little bit of a fade in on it, and also change the fade slightly. And this will duck it right in there. It's going to sound really nice. So we'll go back and play this.
My man is a fighter.
So notice here we just kind of gave it that weird kind of ghostly introduction into the word. And you hear it coming from a long ways away. In fact, we unsolo here. So it helps introduce that very first word of the song. I like to do that wherever you've got wide open spaces because you can see the intro. We've got a lot of time where you can do that there. One thing I heard in this that you might want to be careful of as well is I'm going to delete the fade that I have in there. And this one little part right here gets really loud because it's actually the same exact frequency happening here as is happening there. So a lot of times I like to create a little fade out there, and then that way I can create a fade in here if I want to. But it just helps from the frequencies fighting with one another. Swoop it in slightly. Cool, yeah, that's good to go. That's going to sound real nice. We'll go ahead and give it another audition. So I like that vocal effect there. What'd you guys think of that? Does it sound pretty good? Cool. Let's do it in another spot as well. Anytime I see open air spots, that's places where I like to fool around. So let's do another one. Let's do it here. And let me listen to the words she's saying. It looks like there's a good word there. And I'm looking at basically the sibilance. I'm just looking at the waveform. But let's listen to it and see what she says.
My man is a hunter.
She says, my man again. So if that's the case, I really could take the other one and just copy it over here. But it's kind of cheating. So we'll just go ahead and just do it here. I'll edit it out. I'll drop it down here just by option dragging, holding down option. So basically what you just saw me do is I sliced it out. And if I were to do Command C and then Command V, I basically did the same thing. But if you just hold on to it, you hold down option and drag it, it'll copy it as well. Now remember we want to reverse it. So I got to reverse the position. And then we want to add on to that reverb. So we'll go to Audio Suite, go to Reverb, pull up Deverb, and then we jacked it up to, I believe it was 19 seconds. There we go. We'll go ahead and render it. Oh, wait a minute. I noticed what I did wrong. I didn't make a selection length. Render it. Coolio. Now we got to go back and reverse it again. Audio suite, other, reverse, and then put it back where it goes. Now remember again, let's look at the very end of this because remember these two parts are the exact same frequency. That's why I created a small fade out on this part. And just to help introduce it, I like to create a fade in. And if we go back and give it a listen, and I think we could actually probably boost that up a little bit as well. I think it could actually stand to, here's what I'll do. I'll consolidate in my fades, shift option 3, consolidates, basically prints them. We'll turn this up. Now you can actually really see it. That's going to jump out. Basically, that's on Pro Tools 10 and larger, on any clip, you can actually turn up the clip right within the clip itself, which is a really cool new feature. That's a little bit exaggerated. I probably want to turn it down and crank that up 15 dB. It's probably a little much. 9.8 is probably good. Now, we could have done something a little bit different to this one as well. If we zoom in on this, we change the actual grid resolution. This is a cool little trick I like to do as well. Let me see what bar beat marker I'm on. I like to go and actually just slice into this. So let me make sure this is going to fit. I'm just slicing. I put it down to 30-second notes. I'm just taking out every other slice. What this will do is it'll create kind of a gated effect. So it'll sound like it's getting opened and closed real quick. Sometimes people would actually use hi-hats and use an actual gate to achieve the sound. I like to just hardcore edit into the audio because it creates a very, very exact sound. And it's kind of interesting. I'll play this back here in a moment. Now, you're probably wondering, wait a minute, you're cutting right into the waveform. And I am, but I'm going to go back and create small fade-ins and fade-outs using batch fades. And that way we won't get the nasty popping you traditionally get by editing into a clip that harshly. So if we're going to give this a quick listen to, I'm actually going to solo it out so you can get an idea what it sounds like. And of course, you can hear the little bit of the pops and clips. That's why I'm going to go and actually add in fades. Command F, 5 milliseconds, good to go. And it just put in small little fade-ins and fade-outs on every single one of these clips. If we want to zoom into one real harshly here, you'll see there's little fade-ins and fade-outs, which is very, very helpful because now when I go to play this back, and we go to play it with her vocals now, you'll hear, here, let's unsolo it. So. It's just a neat way of kind of reintroducing without using the same trick twice. I basically did use the same trick, but all I did was then I went and gated it. And I gated it just by basically editing right into it. Usually when I do something like this too, I go back and I make sure I pick the length of measurements. And I usually try to consolidate the effect into itself. That way you don't lose it, or if you try to move it around, it's still there. So Shift Option 3 consolidates, and now you have that effect basically pasted into the file. You can see where I hardcore edited it out. Oh yeah, absolutely. I want you guys to steal these tricks. Where do you think I learned them from? I learned them from other people as well. So yeah, I don't use these in every single remix, but I use them a lot, and it's something that you don't necessarily pay attention to because it just it becomes musical when you go back and listen again. You're not. I mean, yeah, there's an effect going on here. If I were to mute this, let's mute it. If I select the region and do Command M and play this back for you, you won't hear the effect any longer. But you'll get the idea. And then I'll go back and I'll play it for you with the effect, and I think you'll see that it definitely stands out, but it's almost subliminal. It doesn't jump out at you because it's awkward or weird. It just happens to be really natural sounding. There you go. That's without the effect. We'll unmute that region, and we'll play it back with the effect. Now, what you saw me do, again, remember, you can't do this kind of stuff unless you already have the track already locked down. In other words, what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm talking about the grid. When you guys saw me set up the tempo and get the grid going, that's the only way I could have pulled that off and make sure that everything's going to be in time is to make sure that the tempo and the grid are locked. Now, some other little tricks that I like to do. Let's go find the bridge section is really cool. I really like her bridge. It's a really, really interesting bridge. And I also told you guys that I liked some other sections. Let me listen to some stuff on the bridge. But I'm probably going to go back and use some of her outro stuff in other sections as well. Let's go and listen to the bridge real quick. So I really thought there's some interesting stuff going on here. Now, what I like to do, and here's a little trick that I learned from a producer by the name of BT, Brian Tresnaw, is I like to take sibilants anytime there's S's and sometimes P's or anything that's a consonant. I like to exaggerate them. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if we listen here. Like can, that word right there, I can go in and find that consonant. Let's zoom in on it. And I believe it's going to be, I'm going to set myself up for 16th notes. It'll make it really easy to edit this. Let's go listen. Right there is that word can. So all I have to do to really kind of utilize this is edit it out. Actually, I might need to get down to a tighter resolution. What I probably could do to make this a little bit more accurate. Actually, I'm going to make this slightly sloppy, and I think it'll still be all right. I'm going to slice this out. Remember, I'm at a 16th note right now. And I'm just going to make copies of it. Right up to where it happens. And right after it goes away. And I'm then going to consolidate them. Shift Option 3. I'm going to create a... I'm going to get rid of the one where it happens at the same time. That way they're not fighting in frequency. And then we'll create a fade in on this one and a fade out on this one. If we go back and listen to this, it now accentuated that little can, but it did it in a rhythmic fashion as well. So let's take a listen. I'm actually going to turn these up a little bit too. Shift Option 3 to consolidate. And then I have volume control. I can turn them up. And we'll go back and listen. When it gets dark, his fight's worse than his bark. And that was way overdone. That was way, way too loud. When I turn these up, I turn it up by 11 dB. And that was just way too loud. It just made it stick out. It didn't make it a cool effect. I'd probably really, really soften that so you could barely even hear it, because that was jumping out. And and I'd probably throw some reverb on it or something along those lines. But there's just little tiny things like that that make the track interesting. In fact, she already has a couple stutter edits in her vocals. I can't remember if it's in the chorus section, but just some other little cool tricks I figured I'd kind of show you guys, things that I like to do. Let me find another spot in the bridge where we could do this and have it work. Let's see. I got to listen to it first.
It's dark, and where the cabinet's empty, and he's been out.
There was an S, a real sibilant S that happened in here, and I like to mess with those as well.
He's been.
It's right there, this little bit here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to drop down into 64th notes. I'm going to grab that little sibilant part. I'm going to edit it out. Command E. And I'm just going to go and copy it. And notice I'm leaving some space in between each of these. Let's get rid of the one where it's on top of each other. And this will create kind of a delayed effect, because that's basically what we're doing. I'm basically doing a manual delay where I'm copying and pasting this. But this allows me to do something different to each one of these. Oops. And I'll show you what I mean. Like, I can choose to start pitching these down if I wanted. So underneath Audio Suite, we'll go find a pitch shift plugin. And I'll just start coarsely pitching it down. We'll go down 2 semitones, render, down 4 semitones, render, down 6 semitones, render, down 8 semitones, render, 10, you get the idea. Usually I don't go much further than an actual complete octave, so 12 semitones. And if you go back and you listen to this effect, and then let's go ahead and pitch these up. I know it's just kind of picking up out of nowhere, but this will get interesting actually. We'll go up 2, render, up 4, render, up 6, render, and then up 8, render. We go back and listen to it now. It just kind of gives it a cool effect.
And he's been out, and it's empty, and he's been out.
I like the ones that went down. I didn't like the ones that went up. Probably could have kept going on the ones that went down. In fact, I think this one. We'll get rid of these. And what I'll do is, let's go back here and take a look at my grid. Make sure everything's lining up okay. I'll also go and do another process. Check this out. Underneath Audio Suite, underneath Other, you have this thing called, under your pitch shift, you have something called Verify. This is one of my favorite little plugins. Notice what this will do. This will allow me to render it down almost like a record stop. So if we go and listen to it now. So when she says that part, it almost sounds like a record's going to stop on her syllabants.
And he's been out.
Cool. Well, I tell you what, guys, we're running out of time. So what I want to do is I want to leave some availability for you guys to ask some questions. Anything you guys saw that maybe I went a little too fast over, or anything like that. Oh yeah, Paris. By the way, you said you kind of like that last effect. Anytime you see a note that's been carried, like this right here, you can do the same thing to that. Like she's holding that note, so if we wanted to, we could do the same thing for that entire note. Looks like it's happening from here to here, so I'm going to copy it down, Option drag it, and let's pull up that same effect again. We'll go to Audio Suite. We'll go to Pitch Shift. I'll go find Verify, and then I'll render this in. And now I can actually get rid of her original vocal, or we could leave it there. I think what I'd rather do with her original vocal, though, is do some more of those effects on it. Let me actually just let you hear what it sounds like. I'll mute her original, Command M, and then you'll get to hear that slowed down effect happen. And he's been out. So what I typically would do is I'd leave that in there, Command M to unmute it, mute that region. And I'd go in and probably do some more of my little stutter edit trick, but just do it to this section now. That way you've got a little bit of both. You've got the original, and then you've got the pitch that are happening at the exact same time. And then they're not really stepping on each other. 30-second notes. Okay, good. So when you go to play this back now, and he's been out. Cool, a couple of effects going on there. It's happening at the same time. How about some questions? Oh yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Well, guys, if there aren't any questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap 10 minutes early tonight. Next week, we're going to take you guys in. We'll talk about some mixing techniques. We're going to get into some time-based routing. We'll deal with automation. And we'll also deal with session delivery format, some other things you might want to consider. So thanks for coming out tonight. And I tell you what, if anybody needs to chat with me, not a problem. Just I'll pop up my iChat here in a moment once class is over. And that way, if you have any other questions, we can continue through iChat. All right, guys. Well, if you have anything of a personal nature, please see me on my iChat, and I'll go ahead and give you my iChat handle. It's there you go. I posted there in the chats message. It's audiovisionary@me.com. That way, if you guys have any other questions, you're more than welcome to hit me up via iChat. All right, guys. So thanks for coming out. I look forward to seeing you guys back next week. And we'll get this thing wrapped up and ready to deliver. Have a good evening, guys. Good night.